3.8 billion years ago, our planet was a world of fire and steam. Imagine, if you will, standing on this ancient Earth, though you would not survive a single breath. The air was poison, the ground molten rock, and above, an atmosphere so dense with water vapor that it pressed down like a crushing weight. Yet from this hellish beginning, something miraculous was about to unfold. As the young planet cooled, that steam began to condense. Drop by precious drop, the first rains fell. They would continue for millions of years, filling every hollow, every basin, every depression in the cooling crust. The oceans were being born. Before we continue this journey, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story resonates with you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extraordinary for you. These first oceans were nothing like the seas we know today. They were acidic, metal-rich broths that would corrode skin in seconds. Yet within their chemical chaos lay the ingredients for the greatest story ever told, the story of life itself. Every drop of water that would eventually fill Earth's basins carried within it the potential for consciousness, for wonder, for the very thoughts you're thinking as you listen to these words. But the ocean is far more than a container for life. It is life's partner, its rhythm, its breath. To understand this partnership, we must first grasp something that transforms how we see our blue planet. The ocean moves. Not just the familiar dance of waves upon the shore, but something far grander, a circulation system that dwarfs any machine humans have ever built. Picture the greatest conveyor belt imaginable, one that spans every ocean on Earth. Scientists call it the thermohaline circulation, but I prefer to think of it as the ocean's pulse. This circulation begins in the frigid waters around Antarctica and Greenland, where seawater becomes so cold and salty that it sinks like a stone, plunging thousands of meters to the ocean floor. From there, it begins an epic journey. This deep water flows north through the Atlantic, around the tip of Africa, across the Indian Ocean, and into the Pacific. It rises slowly to the surface in the North Pacific, warms in the tropical sun, then begins its return journey as warm surface current. The entire cycle takes 1,000 years to complete. Think about that for a moment. Water that last saw sunlight when medieval cathedrals were being built is only now returning to the surface in the Pacific. Every cubic meter of seawater is a time traveler, carrying the chemical signature of every place it has been. Antarctic ice, Saharan dust, Amazon rainwater, the breath of whales, all dissolved into the ocean's memory. When you stand at the edge of any sea, you are touching water that has circled the globe. Water that connects you to every other shoreline on Earth. This circulation does more than move water. It moves life itself. It carries nutrients from the deep seafloor to sun-drenched surface waters where plants can use them. It distributes heat from the equator to the poles, moderating Earth's climate. It transports larvae across vast distances, connecting ecosystems separated by thousands of miles. The ocean breathes, and with each breath, it sustains the planet. For most of human history, we could only imagine what lay beneath the waves. The ocean was a barrier, a mystery, a realm of monsters and myths. That began to change on December 21st, 1872, when HMS Challenger departed Portsmouth, England, on what would become the most important voyage in the history of marine science. For 3.5 years, Challenger sailed the world's oceans with a revolutionary mission to lower nets, dredges and thermometers into the unknown depths and discover what lived there. The ship's naturalists had no idea what they would find. Many scientists believed the deep ocean was a lifeless desert, crushed by pressure and shrouded in eternal darkness. They could not have been more wrong. When the first dredge was hauled up from 2,000 meters deep, the deck erupted in amazement. The net brimmed with creatures that seemed to belong to another world entirely. Fish with enormous eyes, their bodies translucent as glass. Shrimp that glowed like living embers when touched. Jellies that pulsed with alien rhythms. From the deepest stations came even stranger forms, creatures with no eyes at all, adapted to a world where light had never shone. But perhaps the most profound discovery was the simplest. Ooze. Miles of seafloor, covered in what appeared to be lifeless mud, proved to teem with microscopic organisms. Under the ship's primitive microscopes, this ooze revealed itself as a garden of single-celled life forms, some encased in intricate glass shells, more beautiful than any cathedral window. The Challenger expedition transformed our understanding of Earth itself. The ocean was not empty space between continents, but a realm of unimaginable complexity and abundance. Life, it seemed, had claimed every corner of the sea, from surface to seafloor, adapting to conditions that would seem impossible to creatures of the land. Yet even as we marveled at these discoveries, the ocean was revealing something even more fundamental about its nature. Every 12 hours and 25 minutes, the seas rise and fall in an ancient rhythm that predates all life on Earth. We call them tides, but they are far more than simple movements of water. They are the visible pulse of an invisible partnership between Earth and Moon. Stand on any shore as the tide turns, and you are witnessing forces that operate on cosmic scales. The Moon, hanging in space 250,000 miles away, pulls at every molecule of seawater with its gravity. As Earth rotates beneath this pull, the ocean responds, flowing toward the Moon's position. But the Sun, too, exerts its influence, sometimes adding to the Moon's pull, sometimes opposing it. When Sun and Moon align during new and full moons, their combined gravity creates spring tides that surge higher and retreat farther than any other time. When they pull at right angles during quarter moons, we get neap tides, gentler movements that barely seem to breathe. The ocean rises and falls to rhythms written in the movements of celestial bodies, connecting every tidal pool to the vast machinery of the solar system. These tides do more than move water. They move life. In tidal pools, creatures time their reproduction to the lunar cycle. Grunion fish ride the highest spring tides onto California beaches to spawn in the sand. Coral polyps release their eggs and sperm when spring tides will carry them farthest from the reef. The Moon's gravity, transmitted through moving water, choreographs the dance of life itself. But if you truly want to understand the ocean's complexity, consider this. A single drop of seawater contains more living organisms than there are people in most cities. 1 million bacteria, 10 million viruses, countless microscopic plants and animals, each playing a vital role in the ocean's ecosystem. They are the ocean's immune system, its recycling center, its primary production factory. These microbes process chemicals, break down waste, and form the base of every marine food web. Some bacteria can eat oil, others can metabolize sulfur, still others can photosynthesize like plants. Many exist nowhere else on Earth, adapted to specific depths, temperatures, or chemical conditions. In a single drop of seawater, you hold entire ecosystems that science is only beginning to understand. The ocean's true magnitude becomes clear when we consider its role in the Earth system itself. Every breath you take, 7 out of 10 oxygen molecules, come not from forests or grasslands, but from microscopic plants drifting in the sea. These phytoplankton, invisible to the naked eye, outproduce all land plants combined. They form the foundation of marine food webs and the source of our planet's breathable atmosphere. The ocean also serves as Earth's climate regulator, absorbing 48% of the carbon dioxide that human activities release into the atmosphere. Without this service, our planet would already be uninhabitably hot. The ocean has been buying us time, absorbing the consequences of our industrial age at great cost to its own chemistry and the creatures within it. To truly appreciate the ocean's scale and mystery, we must travel to its deepest point. On January 23rd, 1960, 2 men descended to the bottom of the world in a vessel that looked more like a bathysphere than a spacecraft. Jacques Picard and Don Walsh, sealed inside the bathyscaphe Trieste, sank through 7 miles of water to reach Challenger Deep in the Mariana Trench. At 35,814 feet below the surface, they encountered conditions beyond imagination. The pressure pressed against their steel sphere with the weight of 16,000 atmospheres, enough to crush a human body instantly. The temperature hovered just above freezing. No trace of sunlight had ever penetrated this far, yet as their spotlight pierced the darkness and illuminated the sea floor, Picard and Walsh witnessed something that revolutionized biology. There, in the deepest place on Earth, where science insisted nothing could survive, a flatfish glided past their window. Life had claimed even this ultimate frontier. This single observation shattered our assumptions about life's limits. If creatures could thrive under pressure that would collapse submarines, in temperatures that freeze, in darkness absolute and eternal, then life might exist in places we had never imagined. It opened our minds to the possibility of life on other worlds, in the ice-covered oceans of Jupiter's moons, in the chemical soups of Saturn's satellites. The ocean breathes, and with each breath, it sustains not just marine life but all life on Earth. It regulates temperature, produces oxygen, absorbs carbon, and maintains the delicate balance that makes our planet habitable. It moves nutrients from pole to equator, heat from equator to pole, connecting every ecosystem on Earth in an intricate web of currents and chemistry. As we stand on the threshold of ocean exploration, we are like those early naturalists aboard HMS Challenger, peering into the unknown with primitive tools and unlimited wonder. We have mapped less than 20% of the seafloor. We have explored less than 5% of the ocean's volume. In the deepest trenches, around underwater volcanoes, in the vast plains of the abyss, discoveries await that will transform our understanding of life itself. The ocean that began as condensing steam on a young planet has become the most complex, most vital system on Earth. It is the womb of life, the breath of the planet, the memory of 3.8 billion years of evolution. Every wave that breaks upon the shore carries within it the story of our world, where we came from, how we survive, and perhaps where we are going. Tomorrow, we will descend into those sunlit surface waters where the ocean's greatest gardens bloom, microscopic forests more vast and productive than any on land, tended by creatures so small they seem insignificant, yet so numerous they reshape the atmosphere itself. We will discover how a world of the invisible sustains all visible life, and why the ocean's smallest inhabitants may hold the keys to our planet's future. The ocean breathes, and in its breath we find the rhythm of life itself. In the uppermost layer of the ocean, where sunlight penetrates and warms the water, exists the most productive ecosystem on our planet. Yet if you dipped a bucket into these waters and peered inside, you might see nothing but empty blue. The greatest gardens on Earth are invisible to the naked eye, built by architects so small that millions could dance on the head of a pin. These architects are diatoms, single-celled plants that have mastered the art of living in glass houses. Each diatom constructs an intricate shell of pure silica, the same material that forms quartz crystals and sand. But where human glassmakers struggle to create perfect spheres and cylinders, diatoms craft geometric masterpieces that would humble the finest cathedral builder. Under a microscope, diatoms reveal themselves as living jewels. Some resemble ornate pillboxes with perfectly fitted lids. Others look like microscopic wheels, with spokes radiating from a central hub. Still others appear as delicate chains of glass beads, each link a separate cell connected to its neighbors. The patterns are so precise, so mathematically perfect, that Victorian microscopists used them to test the quality of their lenses. Consider the scale of these creations. A typical diatom measures just 20 micrometers across, 5 times smaller than the width of a human hair. Yet within this minuscule space, the cell constructs walls perforated with holes so small and regularly spaced that they rival the precision of modern nanotechnology. These pores allow nutrients to flow in and waste to flow out while maintaining the structural integrity of their glass homes. But here lies the true wonder. These microscopic plants produce more oxygen than all the world's rainforests combined. Every second breath you take comes from the work of diatoms and their fellow phytoplankton. They have been photosynthesizing in the oceans for 200 million years, slowly building up the atmosphere that allows complex life to exist on land. When conditions are right, when nutrients are abundant, temperatures optimal and sunlight strong, diatoms undergo one of nature's most spectacular explosions of life. They reproduce by simply dividing in half, each daughter cell identical to its parent. Under perfect conditions, this process can happen once every 24 hours. A single diatom becomes 2, then 4, then 8. After just 30 days, that lone cell has produced over 1 billion descendants. These blooms transform entire regions of ocean from deep blue to brilliant green, creating patches of color visible from space. Satellites orbiting 300 miles above Earth regularly photograph blooms spanning thousands of square miles, green swirls and spirals that shift and flow with the currents like living galaxies. The timing of these blooms follows patterns as predictable as the seasons themselves. In the North Atlantic, the spring bloom begins when winter storms subside and sunlight strengthens. Nutrients that have accumulated in surface waters during the dark months suddenly become available to plants desperate for light. The result is an explosion of growth that feeds the entire marine ecosystem for months to come. But diatoms are just one member of the phytoplankton community. Join them in these surface waters are dinoflagellates, armored cells that swim through the water with whip-like flagella. Some are plants, some are animals, and some switch between the two depending on circumstances. When threatened, certain dinoflagellates produce bioluminescent flashes, turning breaking waves into cascades of blue fire. Coccolithophores add their own artistry to this microscopic garden. These single-celled plants surround themselves with plates of calcium carbonate so perfectly formed they look like tiny shields carved by master craftsmen. When they bloom, their white calcium carbonate plates turn vast areas of ocean turquoise, creating patterns so distinctive that oceanographers can identify different species from satellite images alone. Each group of phytoplankton has evolved to exploit different conditions. Diatoms dominate in nutrient-rich waters, building heavy glass shells that help them sink when nutrients run low, waiting in deeper waters for the next upwelling to bring them back to the surface. Coccolithophores prefer the nutrient-poor tropical seas, their calcium carbonate armor protecting them from predators in these clear, competitive waters. But perhaps the most remarkable inhabitants of these sunlit waters are the picoplankton, bacteria so small that millions fit in a single drop of seawater. Prochlorococcus, discovered only in 1988, may be the most abundant photosynthetic organism on Earth. These cells are smaller than most viruses, yet they produce 20% of the oxygen in our atmosphere. They exist in numbers beyond comprehension, 3 times 10 to the 27th power individuals in the world's oceans. To put this in perspective, imagine that every star in the observable universe could be divided into 1 billion smaller stars. The total would still be less than the number of Prochlorococcus cells photosynthesizing in Earth's oceans right now. Each one captures sunlight and transforms carbon dioxide into organic matter, contributing to the vast invisible forest that sustains our planet. These surface waters witness another daily miracle that dwarfs any migration on land. As darkness falls across the ocean, creatures from the deep begin the largest movement of life on Earth. From depths of 600 meters, 10 billion tons of animals rise toward the surface to feed in the phytoplankton gardens. This vertical migration happens every single night in every ocean on the planet. Lanternfish no bigger than your thumb swim the equivalent of a human running a marathon twice daily for their entire lives. Copepods, tiny crustaceans that look like microscopic shrimp, rise from the depths in numbers that create false bottoms on ship sonar systems. Jellies pulse upward through the water column like living parachutes. Squid jet toward the surface, with tentacles trailing behind them. They come to feed on the day's bounty of phytoplankton, but they also come to avoid being eaten themselves. In the depths, visibility is greater during daylight hours. The faint traces of surface light create silhouettes that predators can see from below. By rising to the surface under cover of darkness, these creatures feed safely in the rich waters where photosynthesis has concentrated food. The scale of this migration is staggering. Scientists estimate that over 90% of all marine animals participate in some form of vertical migration. The biomass involved exceeds that of all human beings by a factor of several hundred. Yet for most of human history, we had no idea this migration even existed. It was only with the development of sonar during World War II that we began to detect the mysterious deep, scattering layer, a false seafloor that rose and fell. With the sun, among the most abundant participants in this nightly journey are the lanternfish. These small, silvery creatures possess rows of photophores along their sides, living lights that serve as camouflage in the twilight zone below. Each species has a unique pattern of lights, like a barcode that allows them to recognize their own kind in the darkness. Lanternfish may be the most important animals you have never heard of. They comprise 65% of all deep-sea fish biomass, and their nightly migration transports vast quantities of carbon from surface waters to the deep ocean. When they feed on phytoplankton at night and return to depth during the day, they carry carbon captured by photosynthesis into the deep sea, where it remains trapped for centuries. This biological carbon pump helps regulate Earth's climate, moving carbon dioxide from the atmosphere to long-term storage in the ocean depths. But the surface waters hold wonders that dwarf even the great migrations. Along temperate coastlines, where cold, nutrient-rich waters well up from the depths, grow forests that rival any on land for sheer majesty. These are the kelp forests, underwater cathedrals built not of wood and stone, but of the largest seaweeds on Earth. Giant kelp is a marvel of biological engineering. Starting from a microscopic spore, it can grow to 175 feet tall in a single season, adding 2 feet to its length every day under optimal conditions. This makes it one of the fastest growing organisms on the planet, outpacing bamboo and approaching the growth rates of the most vigorous land plants. The secret to kelp's success lies in its structure. Unlike land plants, which must support their own weight against gravity, kelp is buoyed by seawater. This allows it to invest all its energy in growth rather than structural support. Its holdfast anchors it to rocky substrate, while gas-filled bladders keep its fronds near the surface where sunlight is strongest. A mature kelp forest creates a three-dimensional habitat as complex as any terrestrial ecosystem. The canopy, floating at the surface, forms a dense mat that dampens waves and creates calm conditions below. In this protected environment, an extraordinary community thrives. Sea otters wrap themselves in kelp fronds while they sleep, using the seaweed as natural anchor lines to prevent them from drifting away with the current. These marine mammals are keystone species whose presence determines the entire character of the ecosystem. By eating sea urchins, voracious grazers that can strip a kelp forest bare, otters maintain the delicate balance that allows the forest to flourish. Among the holdfasts at the base of the kelp, a hidden world exists. Brittle stars grip the rocky substrate with tube feet, their arms writhing through the water to capture drifting particles. Giant Pacific octopuses den in rocky crevices, their intelligence rivaling that of vertebrates as they hunt crabs and fish through the kelp forest maze. Juvenile rockfish find sanctuary among the fronds, their mottled coloration providing perfect camouflage against the kelp's golden-brown surface. Some will remain here for years before venturing into open water, the kelp forest serving as a nursery for much of the nearshore marine ecosystem. But perhaps the most remarkable aspect of kelp forests is their global reach through death. When winter storms tear mature plants from their holdfasts, the kelp doesn't simply die and decay. Instead, it begins an epic journey that connects coastal ecosystems to the deepest parts of the ocean. Storm-torn kelp continues photosynthesis as it drifts, its cells still processing sunlight and carbon dioxide, even as ocean currents carry it far from shore. Some kelp fragments wash up on distant beaches, feeding terrestrial scavengers and adding marine nutrients to coastal soils. Other pieces sink into submarine canyons, carrying the sun's energy, captured in shallow water down to depths where no plant has ever grown. In the abyssal depths, this kelp becomes an oasis of nutrition for creatures adapted to scarcity. Deep-sea creatures gather around kelp, falls like desert animals around an oasis, their communities flourishing on this gift from the sunlit world above. Scientists have discovered that a single large kelp plant can support deep-sea communities for decades, its nutrients cycling through the food web as it slowly decomposes on the seafloor. This connection between surface and depth, between the photosynthetic world and the realm of eternal darkness, illustrates the ocean's fundamental unity. Energy captured by diatoms in the open sea, by giant kelp in coastal forests, by countless microscopic plants in surface waters, flows through the marine ecosystem in currents both visible and invisible. The gardens of liquid sunlight exist in constant motion, their boundaries shifting with seasons, currents, and weather patterns. Nutrients upwell from the depths to fertilize these gardens. Currents transport their products across ocean basins. Death carries their bounty to the deepest trenches. In the surface waters, sunlight becomes sugar, sugar becomes flesh, and the sun's energy cascades through forms both beautiful and strange. As we prepare to descend beyond these sunlit gardens, remember that every breath you take connects you to this invisible forest. The oxygen in your lungs was produced by plants so small you cannot see them, yet so numerous they outweigh all life on land. In the marriage of sunlight and seawater, in the patient work of microscopic gardeners, lies the foundation of all ocean life. Tomorrow, we descend into the twilight zone, a realm where sunlight fades but life explodes into forms of beauty and strangeness that challenge everything we thought we knew about existence. Here, in the ocean's dim middle waters, evolution has crafted solutions to survival that read like science fiction made real. Descend with me now through the thermocline, that invisible boundary at 200 meters where the ocean's warm surface waters meet the eternal cold below. Here temperature drops 10 degrees Celsius in just a few meters, creating a barrier as real as any wall. Above lies the realm of photosynthesis and plenty. Below begins a world where sunlight becomes a fading memory, and life must find new ways to survive. Welcome to the twilight zone, the ocean's middle waters where shadows dance between light and darkness. This is neither the sun-drenched surface nor the pitch-black abyss, but something far more mysterious, a realm of perpetual dusk, where creatures navigate by starlight they create themselves. In these twilight waters lives the most abundant vertebrate on our planet, yet most people have never heard its name. The bristlemouth fish, no larger than your index finger, exists in numbers that challenge comprehension. Scientists estimate there are several quadrillion individuals in the world's oceans. That's more bristlemouth fish than all birds, reptiles, amphibians, and mammals combined, including every human who has ever lived. These tiny fish shimmer with rows of photophores, living lights arranged along their bodies like pearls on a string. Each light is a masterpiece of biological engineering, containing the same chemistry that makes fireflies glow, but adapted for life in liquid darkness. When startled, bristlemouths flash in coordinated patterns, creating underwater fireworks that confuse predators and communicate with their own kind. But to truly understand the magic of the Twilight Zone, we must journey back to August 15th, 1934. When two men descended into these depths in a vessel that seemed more suited to exploring other planets than Earth's oceans. William Beebe and Otis Barton, sealed inside a steel sphere called the bathysphere, became the first humans to witness the Twilight Zone's bioluminescent ballet with their own eyes. Through the bathysphere's single quartz window, BB watched what he described as exploding bombs of light. Startled by the bathysphere's intrusion, creatures erupted into displays of bioluminescence, unlike anything ever seen on land. Jellyfish pulsed with rings of blue fire. Deep-sea shrimp ejected glowing clouds that hung in the water like underwater auroras. Most spectacular of all was a 6-foot siphonophore that passed like a living galaxy, each segment of its colonial body pulsing with different colored light. It was like watching the birth of stars, BB later wrote. If stars could dance and sing in perfect synchrony, what he witnessed was the most common form of communication on Earth, bioluminescence. Scientists now know that 90% of animals in the twilight zone produce their own light through chemical reactions between molecules called luciferin and luciferase. This living light serves purposes as diverse as the creatures that create it. Some animals use bioluminescence as camouflage, matching the faint, downwelling light from above to erase their silhouettes when viewed from below. Others flash patterns to attract mates, their light serving as underwater semaphore in the eternal dusk. Still others weaponize their glow, stunning prey with blinding flashes or releasing glowing clouds to confuse predators. The chemistry of bioluminescence represents one of evolution's most elegant solutions to life in darkness. The reaction produces almost no heat. Over 95% of the energy becomes light, compared to just 5% in an incandescent bulb. This cold light has evolved independently at least 50 times in marine organisms, suggesting that in the twilight zone, the ability to glow confers such tremendous advantages that evolution finds it again and again. Among the twilight zone's most remarkable residents is a creature that seems designed by a committee of science fiction writers. The vampire squid bears a name that strikes fear, yet it is neither squid nor vampire, nor particularly frightening. Instead, it is a living fossil, the last survivor of a group that diverged from true squids and octopuses 300 million years ago. When the first forests were spreading across land, the vampire squid possesses the largest eyes relative to body size of any animal on Earth. These enormous organs, each the size of a dog's eye on a body no bigger than a football, can detect the faintest traces of bioluminescent light. In the twilight zone, where vision often means the difference between eating and being eaten, the vampire squid has evolved into a master of seeing and being seen when threatened. This remarkable creature performs one of nature's most spectacular defense displays. In a move that defies expectation, the vampire squid turns itself inside out, displaying rows of spines that transform it from soft-bodied prey into what appears to be an underwater porcupine. But the true magic lies in what happens next. Between its arms stretches a web of tissue that can transform into a protective cloak. This web, studded with photophores, can glow with patterns of light that pulse and flow like a living aurora. The display serves multiple purposes. It makes the squid appear larger and more threatening. It creates confusing patterns that disorient predators. And it can even mimic the bioluminescent signals of other creatures. If visual deterrence fails, the vampire squid employs its ultimate defense. It ejects clouds of bioluminescent mucus that glow for up to 10 minutes. These glowing clouds, called burglar alarms, serve as decoys, attracting predators while the squid escapes into the darkness. The ejected mucus contains thousands of tiny photophores that continue to pulse and glow, creating a light show that would be beautiful if it weren't a desperate struggle for survival. This death-mimicking display represents something profound about life in the twilight zone. Here, appearance and reality often diverge. Creatures that seem fearsome may be gentle filter feeders. Animals that appear transparent may be armed with powerful toxins. In the eternal dusk, survival often depends not on strength or speed, but on mastering the art of illusion. The vampire squid feeds on marine snow, a gentle rain of organic particles that drifts down from the productive surface waters above. Using specialized filaments that can extend to twice its body length, it collects these particles like an underwater spider gathering prey in its web. This feeding strategy allows it to survive in waters too nutrient-poor to support active predators, occupying an ecological niche that exists nowhere else on Earth. But perhaps the most remarkable aspect of Twilight Zone creatures is their vertical migrations. Each night, billions of animals rise from these depths to feed in surface waters, then descend again before dawn. This migration creates what marine biologists call the deep scattering layer, a false seafloor that appears on sonar systems and moves up and down with the sun. The lanternfish lead this nightly exodus, their bodies glittering with photophores as they swim upward through hundreds of meters of water. Each species carries its own light signature, a unique pattern of photophores that serves as both identification and camouflage. In the Twilight Zone, these lights help them blend with the faint downwelling light from above, making them nearly invisible to predators looking up from below. Siphonophores join the migration in numbers that boggle the mind. These colonial organisms, some stretching longer than blue whales, drift through the water column like living fishing nets. Each individual in the colony is specialized for a specific function. Some capture prey, others digest food, still others focus solely on reproduction. Together, they form superorganisms that hunt cooperatively in the Twilight Zone's dim waters. The migration serves purposes beyond simple feeding. In the Twilight Zone, many creatures use the faint light patterns at different depths as navigation aids. The subtly changing intensity of downwelling light provides them with a vertical compass, helping them maintain their position in the water column and return to their preferred depths before dawn. This daily vertical migration has profound implications for ocean chemistry and global climate. As creatures feed on carbon-rich plankton at the surface and then descend to digest in the depths, they transport vast quantities of carbon from the atmosphere to the deep ocean. Scientists estimate that Twilight Zone animals sequester 6 billion tons of carbon annually, roughly equivalent to the amount released by all volcanic activity on Earth. The Twilight Zone also serves as the ocean's memory bank, preserving chemical signals from surface waters and transporting them to depth. Creatures that migrate vertically carry not just carbon, but nitrogen, phosphorus, and trace elements essential for life. Their daily journeys connect the sunlit surface to the dark depths, creating chemical gradients that help drive ocean circulation patterns. In recent years, new technologies have revealed that the Twilight Zone teems with life in ways we never imagined. Environmental DNA sampling, analyzing genetic material shed by organisms into the water, suggests that this realm may contain 10 times more fish than previously estimated. Advanced cameras deployed on underwater vehicles have captured images of creatures so strange they seem alien. Transparent jellies with internal galaxies of light, fish with telescoping jaws that unhinge to swallow prey twice their size, and colonial organisms that rearrange their body parts like living Lego sets. The bioluminescent displays in the Twilight Zone follow patterns as complex as any earthly music. Different species flash at different frequencies, creating rhythms that pulse through the water column. Some creatures synchronize their displays with others of their kind, generating waves of light that sweep through the ocean like underwater lightning. Others respond to the light patterns of different species, creating cascades of bioluminescence that can stretch for miles. These light shows serve as the ocean's internet, a communication network that spans ocean basins and connects creatures separated by vast distances. A flash of light in the Indian Ocean Twilight Zone may use the same chemical language as a glow in the Pacific, evidence of the evolutionary unity that underlies marine life's stunning diversity. As we prepare to descend beyond the Twilight Zone into the ocean's deepest realms, consider the poetry of what we have witnessed. In waters where sunlight fades to memory, life has not retreated, but exploded into forms of beauty that surpass human imagination. Creatures have learned to write with light, to speak in bioluminescent tongues, to create art from the very chemistry of their cells. The Twilight Zone reminds us that the boundary between science and magic is often thinner than we imagine. Here in the ocean's middle waters, evolution has crafted solutions that read like fantasy, yet function with the precision of the finest engineering. Every flash of bioluminescent light carries information. Every migration transports energy. Every creature embodies millions of years of adaptation to life in liquid twilight. Tomorrow, we descend into the abyss, the ocean's deepest realm, where pressure would crush steel and darkness reigns absolute. Yet even there, in conditions that seem incompatible with life, we will discover ecosystems that thrive without sunlight, communities that transform poison into food, and creatures that redefine our understanding of what it means to be alive. 3,000 feet below the surface, the last trace of sunlight vanishes forever. Here begins the abyss, a realm that covers 65% of Earth's surface, yet remains more mysterious than the far side of the moon. The water temperature hovers just above freezing, at 4 degrees Celsius, a constant cold that has persisted for millions of years. Pressure reaches 100 times that at sea level, enough to compress a styrofoam cup to the size of a thimble in seconds. To early ocean explorers, this seemed like the very definition of a lifeless desert. How could anything survive in eternal darkness, crushing pressure, and temperatures that would kill most surface creatures within minutes? The abyss appeared to be Earth's empty quarter, a vast void between the living surface and the rocky seafloor. They could not have been more spectacularly wrong. On February 17th, 1977, the research submersible Alvin descended to 8,000 feet near the Galapagos Islands, carrying 3 scientists toward what they hoped would be evidence of underwater hot springs. The ocean floor at this depth was expected to be barren, a desert of mud and darkness where life clung to existence on the meager rain of organic matter drifting down from far above. Instead, they discovered another planet through Alvin's small portholes. The scientists stared in astonishment at what seemed like an alien landscape. Towering above the seafloor were chimneys of black rock, some reaching 3 stories tall, belching clouds of superheated water into the frigid abyss. The water erupting from these vents reached temperatures of 400 degrees Celsius, hot enough to melt lead, yet somehow not turning to steam in the crushing depths. But it was what lived around these vents that truly shattered scientific understanding. Clustered near the heat sources were creatures that belonged in a science fiction film, not in Earth's oceans. Giant tube worms, 6 feet long and thick as a person's arm, swayed in the heated currents. Their bodies were snow-white, crowned with brilliant red plumes that looked like underwater flowers. They had no mouth, no stomach, no way to eat that anyone could identify. Surrounding the tube worms were crabs the color of ghosts, their shells translucent in the submersible's lights. Clams the size of dinner plates covered the rocks, their shells gaping open to reveal flesh that seemed to glow with its own inner light. Most shocking of all, these creatures were not just surviving. In this hellish environment, they were thriving in numbers that rivaled the richest coral. Reefs, the discovery of hydrothermal vents, rewrote the textbooks of biology and fundamentally changed our understanding of life on Earth. Here was an ecosystem that operated on principles completely different from everything we knew. Instead of depending on photosynthesis and solar energy, these communities were built on chemosynthesis, the ability of certain bacteria to derive energy from chemicals dissolved in the vent water. The superheated water erupting from these vents carries hydrogen sulfide, methane, and other compounds that would be toxic to most life forms. But the bacteria living around the vents have evolved to use these chemicals as fuel, combining them with oxygen dissolved in seawater to produce energy. In essence, they eat poison and excrete food, transforming the Earth's own chemical energy into the building blocks of life. The giant tube worms that first amazed the Alvin crew embody this alien chemistry. These creatures have no digestive system because they don't need one. Instead, their bodies house billions of chemosynthetic bacteria in a specialized organ called a trophosome. The worms provide the bacteria with hydrogen sulfide absorbed through their red plumes, and in return, the bacteria provide all the nutrition the worms need. It's a partnership more intimate than any marriage. Two completely different life forms, so intertwined. They function as a single organism. These bacterial partners are so efficient that vent communities can support biomass densities 10,000 times, greater than typical deep-sea environments. A single hydrothermal vent, no larger than a city block, can harbor more life than vast stretches of abyssal plain. Scientists have discovered over 300 unique species living around these underwater oases, with each new vent system revealing creatures found nowhere else on Earth. The chemistry of vent life operates on principles that seem to violate basic biology. Some vent bacteria thrive at temperatures that would cook most proteins, protected by heat shock enzymes that keep their cellular machinery functioning near the boiling point. Others live in water so acidic it would dissolve human skin, their cell walls reinforced with specialized compounds that resist chemical attack. Perhaps most remarkably, vent ecosystems are ephemeral. The volcanic activity that creates them also destroys them. Most vents remain active for only decades or centuries before the geological forces beneath them shift and the hot water stops flowing. When a vent dies, its unique ecosystem dies with it. Yet somehow, larvae from these communities manage to disperse across hundreds of miles of abyssal desert to colonize new vents as they form. This dispersal remains one of the great mysteries of vent biology. How do creatures adapted to temperatures near boiling point survive journeys through water barely above freezing? How do they find new vents in the vast darkness of the abyss? Recent research suggests that the deep ocean currents carry chemical signatures from distant vents, invisible trails of dissolved minerals that vent larvae can follow like underwater highways, away from the dramatic spectacle of hydrothermal vents. The abyssal plains stretch in all directions, vast underwater prairies that cover more area than all continents combined. To the casual observer, these plains might seem lifeless, covered only in fine sediment that has accumulated over millions of years. But this apparent emptiness conceals one of Earth's most patient and persistent ecosystems. The key to life in the abyssal plains is marine snow, the constant, gentle precipitation of organic matter from the surface world far above. Dead plankton, fecal pellets, molted shells, and fragments of larger organisms drift downward through the water column like an underwater blizzard. This detritus takes weeks to complete its journey to the abyss, decomposing slowly as it falls. But enough arrives to sustain communities of remarkable creatures. The animals of the abyssal plains have evolved strategies for survival that border on the supernatural. The gulper eel's mouth can unhinge like a snake's, allowing it to swallow prey larger than its own body. Its stomach can stretch to accommodate meals that might not come again for months. When food is scarce, the eel can slow its metabolism to near hibernation levels, surviving on stored energy while waiting for the next windfall of marine snow. Anglerfish have turned predation into an art form, dangling bioluminescent lures in front of their enormous mouths. The light comes from bacterial partners that live in specialized organs, fed by the fish's bloodstream in exchange for their services as living flashlights. Some deep-sea anglerfish have evolved sexual parasitism so extreme it challenges our understanding of individual identity. Tiny males bite onto females and gradually fuse with their bodies, becoming little more than sperm-producing organs. But perhaps the most remarkable residents of the abyss are the glass sponges, creatures that seem more like living architecture than animals. These organisms build skeletons of pure silica, creating fiber-optic networks that rival human technology in their efficiency. The Venus flower basket sponge constructs a latticework, of glass fibers so perfectly designed that light passes through them with less loss than occurs in commercial optical cables. Some glass sponge reefs are among the oldest living structures on Earth. Individual sponges can live for thousands of years, growing so slowly that some add less than a millimeter to their height annually. Carbon dating of their skeletons reveals ages that span millennia. Some glass sponges alive today began growing when humans were first learning to write. These ancient sponges create reefs that stretch for hundreds of miles across the deep ocean floor. The Hecate Strait glass sponge reefs off the coast of British Columbia cover an area larger than some small countries, built by creatures that were filtering deep-sea water when the Roman Empire was at its height. The reefs provide habitat for countless other deep-sea species, creating underwater cities in the abyssal darkness. Life in the abyss moves to rhythms completely different from those in surface waters. Reproduction happens slowly, often triggered by the seasonal rain of marine snow that marks spring blooms thousands of feet above. Deep-sea clams may live for 400 years, adding growth rings to their shells at a pace so slow that scientists can use them as archives of deep ocean conditions spanning centuries. The abyss also serves as the ocean's memory, preserving chemical signals and organic matter in sediments that accumulate at rates measured in millimeters per 1,000 years. These sediment layers contain records of ancient climates, mass extinctions, and the gradual evolution of ocean chemistry over geological time. Scientists drilling into abyssal sediments have recovered evidence of asteroid impacts, volcanic eruptions, and climate changes that occurred millions of years ago. In the deepest trenches, where the ocean floor plunges to depths that dwarf the height of Mount Everest. Life takes on forms that seem almost crystalline in their adaptation to extreme conditions. Xenophyophores, single-celled organisms larger than dinner plates, carpet the trench floors with structures that look like alien cities built from test tubes and spirals. These giants among microbes construct their bodies from sediment grains, creating elaborate chambers and passages that can house entire communities of smaller organisms. The discovery that life thrives even in these ultimate depths has profound implications for our understanding of life's possibilities. If organisms can survive and flourish in the crushing darkness of Earth's deepest trenches, in water hot enough to cook flesh, under pressure that would collapse submarines, then life might exist in places we never imagined. The ice-covered oceans of Jupiter's moon Europa, the hydrocarbon lakes of Saturn's moon Titan, the subsurface seas that may exist throughout the solar system all become potential habitats when we see what life has achieved in Earth's abyss. The abyss also plays a crucial role in regulating our planet's climate. The deep waters that fill these basins form at the surface in polar regions, sink to the bottom, and remain isolated from the atmosphere for centuries. This deep water serves as a vast reservoir for carbon dioxide, storing more carbon than exists in all terrestrial plants and the atmosphere combined. As these waters slowly circulate through the global ocean system, they help moderate Earth's temperature and chemical balance. Recent discoveries continue to reveal new wonders in the abyss. Environmental DNA sampling has identified thousands of previously unknown species living in deep-sea sediments. Underwater vehicles have photographed creatures so strange they defy classification. Jellies that look like living spaceships, fish with transparent heads, and organisms that seem to change their body structure at will. Perhaps most remarkably, scientists have discovered that the abyss is far more connected to surface waters than anyone suspected. Chemical traces reveal that nutrients processed by deep-sea bacteria eventually return to surface waters through upwelling, fertilizing the phytoplankton blooms that produce much of our oxygen. The abyss and the surface exist in partnership, each dependent on the other in ways we are only beginning to understand. As we contemplate the kingdoms without sunshine, we must marvel at life's resourcefulness. In the harshest environments on Earth, where conventional wisdom insisted nothing could survive, evolution has crafted communities of stunning complexity and beauty. The abyss teaches us that life is not a fragile accident, but a persistent force that finds ways to thrive in conditions that would seem impossible. Tomorrow, we will explore another kind of precision in the ocean's depths, the clockwork rhythms that synchronize reproduction, navigation, and survival across species and ocean basins. We will discover how creatures separated by thousands of miles coordinate their lives with celestial cycles, and how the ocean itself serves as a vast timekeeper, marking seasons and years in the lives of its inhabitants. In the coral reefs of the Great Barrier Reef, something miraculous happens every spring when the full moon rises in May. As water temperatures reach exactly 27 degrees Celsius and moonlight floods the shallow lagoons, an entire ecosystem prepares for one of nature's most spectacular, synchronized events. Coral polyps, tiny animals no larger than rice grains, have been preparing for this moment all year. And now they respond to signals written in starlight and water chemistry on a single night. Billions upon billions of coral polyps release their eggs and sperm simultaneously into the water. The timing is so precise that scientists can predict the exact night months in advance. Within hours, the crystal-clear tropical waters become a thick soup of coral. Gametes, so dense it looks like underwater snow falling upward. The ocean turns milky white for miles around as an entire reef system reproduces in perfect synchrony. This mass spawning represents one of the most remarkable examples of biological timing in nature. The corals are responding to multiple environmental cues with an accuracy that rivals atomic clocks. They detect the phase of the moon by measuring changes in light intensity of just 1 lux, equivalent to the light from a single candle viewed from 3,000 feet away. Temperature sensors in their tissues monitor water warmth to within tenths of a degree. Internal biological clocks, synchronized over generations, count down the days since the last spawning. But how do creatures without brains, without nervous systems as we understand them, coordinate such complex timing across thousands of square miles of reef? The answer lies in the fundamental chemistry of life itself. Coral polyps contain the same circadian clock genes found in humans, molecular timepieces that evolved billions of years ago and have been passed down through every lineage of life on Earth. These genetic clocks run on cycles of protein production and breakdown that repeat every 24 hours, driven by the rotation of our planet. But corals have added layers of complexity, incorporating lunar cycles, seasonal temperature changes, and even the gradual lengthening of days as Earth's rotation slows over geological time. They are living calendars, keeping track of multiple rhythms simultaneously. The mass spawning serves purposes beyond simple reproduction. By releasing gametes simultaneously, corals ensure that eggs and sperm from different colonies will mix, maintaining genetic diversity across the reef. The timing also overwhelms predators. There are simply too many eggs and larvae for fish and other creatures to consume them all. Most importantly, the coordinated release creates vast clouds of developing coral larvae that ocean currents can carry to distant reefs, colonizing new areas and maintaining connections between coral communities separated by hundreds of miles. This precision timing extends far beyond coral reefs. Throughout the ocean, creatures have evolved to synchronize their most critical life events with celestial cycles and seasonal changes. The result is a biological clockwork of stunning complexity, millions of species coordinating their lives with rhythms that span from hours to decades. Consider the Pacific salmon, perhaps nature's most accomplished navigators. These fish demonstrate timing and navigation abilities that make human GPS systems seem primitive by comparison. Born in freshwater streams, they spend their early lives learning the chemical signature of their birth waters, a unique cocktail of minerals, organic compounds, and microbial signatures that serves as their permanent address in the vast ocean. When the time comes to migrate to sea, young salmon undergo a physiological transformation called smolting. Their bodies change from stream-adapted to ocean-adapted in a matter of weeks, their silver scales developing the ability to process salt water, their behavior shifting from territorial to schooling. This transformation is triggered by day length, water temperature, and internal biological clocks that have evolved over millions of years, but perhaps most remarkably, salmon can detect their birth stream's chemical signature at concentrations of 1 part per billion. To put this in perspective, imagine being able to detect a single drop of perfume mixed into 20 Olympic-sized swimming pools. Their olfactory system is so sensitive, it can distinguish between streams that differ by just a few chemical parts per million, the equivalent of identifying individual people by the trace amounts of soap they used days earlier. After spending 4 years feeding and growing in the North Pacific, covering distances of 3,000 miles or more, salmon begin their return journey with timing that borders on the supernatural. They navigate using a combination of magnetic, chemical, and celestial cues, but their most remarkable ability is knowing exactly when to begin the journey home. Salmon carry internal maps written in magnetism, encoded in specialized cells that contain crystals of magnetite, the same mineral used in compass needles. These cells can detect variations in Earth's magnetic field as small as 50 nanoteslas, allowing the fish to sense their position relative to magnetic landmarks scattered across the ocean floor. But they also navigate by the sun and stars, adjusting their direction based on the time of day and season. The precision of their timing becomes apparent when thousands of salmon arrive at river mouths within days of each other. Having traveled from feeding grounds scattered across thousands of square miles of ocean, they time their arrival to coincide with optimal river conditions, flows that will help them navigate upstream, temperatures that will sustain them through their final journey, and timing that will place them on spawning grounds exactly when conditions are right for their offspring. But salmon navigation represents just one example of the ocean's biological clockwork. On beaches around the world, other creatures demonstrate timing abilities that seem almost magical in their precision. The California grunion, a small silverfish, times its reproduction to the highest spring tides of the year. These fish ride the waves onto sandy beaches during the few nights each month when tides reach their absolute peak, spawning in the wet sand just above the high water mark. The timing must be perfect. Spawn too early, and the eggs will be washed away by the next high tide. Spawn too late, and they will dry out before the next spring tide returns to carry the hatched larvae back to sea. The grunion have solved this timing challenge by synchronizing their reproduction with both lunar and tidal cycles, creating a biological calendar that ensures their eggs incubate safely in the sand for exactly 14 days before the next spring tide liberates their offspring. This celestial choreography extends to the smallest creatures in the sea. Zooplankton, the tiny animals that form the base of most marine food webs, migrate vertically through the water column each day in response to light levels. But their timing is so precise that scientists use their movements to calibrate oceanographic instruments. Some copepods can detect changes in light intensity equivalent to a few photons per second, allowing them to time their migrations to the optimal balance between feeding opportunities and predator avoidance. Even more remarkable is the story of sea turtle navigation, which demonstrates biological timing on scales that span decades. A loggerhead turtle hatchling, no bigger than a silver dollar, scrambles down a Florida beach toward the moonlit waves with no prior experience of the ocean. Yet this tiny creature is about to embark on one of the most precisely timed journeys in the natural world. Upon entering the water, the hatchling immediately begins swimming east with determination that seems programmed into its very cells. It swims continuously for 72 hours straight, using the Earth's magnetic field as a compass to guide it toward the Gulf Stream. This massive current system will carry the turtle northward along the American coast, then eastward across the Atlantic toward Europe. The turtle's journey follows what scientists call the North Atlantic Gyre, a circular current system that takes roughly 10 to 12 years to complete. The turtle times its movement within this gyre with precision that defies explanation. It feeds and grows in the nutrient-rich waters near the Azores, matures in the warm waters off Africa, then times its return journey to arrive back at North American waters exactly when it reaches sexual maturity. Most remarkably, when the time comes to nest, female loggerheads return not just to the general region where they were born, but often to the exact same beach, sometimes even the same stretch of sand. They navigate this 12,000-mile journey using magnetic memories imprinted at birth, following magnetic signposts that guide them home across any ocean that has no visible landmarks. This navigation system is so precise that turtles can compensate for the gradual drift of Earth's magnetic field over the decades. Between their birth and their return to nest, the magnetic North Pole moves continuously, and the strength and direction of magnetic field lines change slowly over time. Yet turtles somehow adjust their navigation to account for these changes, updating their internal maps as they travel. The biological clockwork of the ocean extends beyond individual species to entire ecosystems. In polar seas, the timing of ice formation and melting drives biological rhythms that synchronize life across vast regions. Algae growing beneath Arctic ice time their blooms to the increasing daylight of spring, even though they remain in darkness beneath the ice sheet. They respond to subtle changes in light penetration through the ice, beginning photosynthesis weeks before the ice breaks up. This under-ice bloom feeds copepods that have spent the winter in a state of near hibernation, their metabolism slowed to conserve energy. As the algae bloom intensifies, the copepods emerge from their dormancy with timing that ensures their reproduction coincides with peak food availability. Their larvae develop rapidly in the cold water, growing fat on the abundant algae, just as Arctic cod arrive to feed on the copepod swarms. The cod, in turn, time their spawning to ensure their larvae will hatch exactly when copepods are most abundant. Seabirds time their migration to Arctic waters to coincide with the cod spawning, and marine mammals arrive just as the entire food web reaches peak productivity. The result is a biological clockwork driven by the planet's orbital mechanics, the tilt of Earth's axis, creating seasonal rhythms that synchronize life across an entire ecosystem. But perhaps the most remarkable aspect of ocean clockwork is its resilience in the face of change. As climate patterns shift and ocean chemistry changes, marine creatures are demonstrating their ability to adjust their timing to new conditions. Some coral reefs are shifting their spawning times earlier in the year as water temperatures rise sooner. Salmon are adjusting their migration timing as river flows change with altered precipitation patterns. Sea turtles are modifying their nesting schedules as beach temperatures change. These adjustments reveal the sophisticated nature of biological timing systems. Rather than being rigidly programmed, they appear to incorporate feedback mechanisms that allow creatures to fine-tune their schedules based on environmental conditions. This flexibility may be key to survival as Earth's climate continues to change. Recent research has revealed that many marine animals carry multiple biological clocks, each synchronized to different environmental rhythms. Fish may have separate timing systems for daily migrations, seasonal reproduction, and multi-year life cycle events. These clocks can run independently or in coordination, creating layers of temporal complexity that scientists are only beginning to understand. The ocean's clockwork also extends to chemical rhythms that pulse through marine ecosystems. Nutrients cycle between surface and deep waters on timescales that range from days to millennia. Carbon moves through ocean food webs in cycles that span generations. Even the pH of seawater oscillates with biological rhythms as organisms consume and produce carbon dioxide in daily and seasonal patterns. As we contemplate the precision of ocean clockwork, we must marvel at the sophistication of timing systems that operate without conscious thought or technological assistance. Marine creatures navigate by stars they cannot see, respond to magnetic fields they cannot feel, and coordinate their lives with lunar cycles they may not even perceive directly. They are living calendars, carrying within their cells the accumulated wisdom of millions of years of evolution. The ocean's biological clockwork reminds us that time itself is woven into the fabric of life. Every heartbeat, every migration, every moment of reproduction is part of a vast temporal symphony that connects individual organisms to cosmic rhythms. In understanding these natural timepieces, we begin to appreciate the profound connections between life and the fundamental forces that govern our universe. Tomorrow, we will explore another dimension of ocean sophistication, the complex communication networks that span ocean basins, connecting creatures separated by thousands of miles in acoustic conversations that have been ongoing for millions of years. We will discover how the ocean itself serves as a medium for information exchange, carrying messages through the dark depths with a fidelity that rivals human technology. In 1967, Navy hydrophones deployed across the Pacific to track Soviet submarines began detecting something unexpected. Deep beneath the waves, powerful low-frequency pulses swept across entire ocean basins with a regularity that suggested intelligence behind them. These mysterious calls lasted 30 seconds each, repeating at 20 Hz frequencies that could travel thousands of miles through the ocean's sound channel. Military analysts initially suspected secret Soviet technology, some form of underwater communication system that could coordinate submarine fleets across the Pacific. The calls were too loud, too regular, and too sophisticated to be natural phenomena. They reached 188 decibels, louder than standing next to a jet engine, yet they emerged from the empty ocean with no visible source. The mystery deepened when marine biologist Roger Payne analyzed recordings of these calls and made a discovery that revolutionized our understanding of ocean communication. The sounds were not mechanical transmissions from hidden submarines, but songs, the most powerful animal voices on Earth, produced by blue whales calling to each other across distances that spanned continents. Blue whales, the largest animals ever to live on our planet, had been using the ocean as a global telephone system for millions of years. Their calls, produced in vocal cords the size of grand pianos, could travel 4,000 miles through deep water, allowing whales in the waters off California to communicate with others near Hawaii. Each population sang in distinct dialects, their songs evolving over years, like musical traditions passed down through generations. This discovery opened our ears to an acoustic universe that had been hidden from human awareness. The ocean, far from being a silent realm, resonates with conversations more complex and far-reaching than anything in the terrestrial world. Sound travels 4 times faster through water than through air, and the ocean's layered structure creates acoustic highways that carry voices across entire ocean basins. The ocean's sound channel, discovered during World War II, forms a natural waveguide that can carry low-frequency sounds for thousands of miles with minimal energy loss. This channel exists at depths of 1,000 to 4,000 feet, where the combined effects of temperature and pressure create conditions that trap sound waves and guide them across vast distances. Whales have evolved to exploit this channel, positioning themselves at optimal depths to send their voices around the world. But blue whales are just the bass section in an ocean-spanning symphony. Fin whales contribute their own deep notes, 20 Hz pulses that can last 20 seconds and travel even farther than blue whale songs. Humpback whales add complex melodies that can continue for 30 minutes, with themes and variations that suggest musical sophistication rivaling human compositions. These songs change over time, with new phrases appearing and spreading through populations like hit songs on the radio. The acoustic complexity of whale communication continues to astound researchers. Male humpback whales compose songs that follow strict structural rules, themes, phrases, and motifs arranged in hierarchical patterns that linguists recognize as hallmarks of true language. All males in a population sing the same song at any given time, but the song evolves continuously, with new elements added and old ones discarded in a process that resembles cultural transmission. Most remarkably, these song changes spread across entire ocean basins. A new phrase that appears in humpback songs off the coast of Australia will gradually spread eastward across the Pacific, reaching populations near Central America within a few years. This cultural transmission occurs during brief encounters between whales from different populations, suggesting that these massive animals maintain social networks spanning thousands of miles. Sperm whales take ocean communication to even more sophisticated levels. These deep-diving giants possess the largest brains of any animal and use biosonar more advanced than any human technology. They produce clicks at 230 decibels, the loudest biological sounds known to science, focusing these acoustic beams like underwater lasers to hunt giant squid in the crushing depths. But sperm whales also use sound for communication in ways that suggest they may possess something approaching language. Family groups of sperm whales share distinctive patterns of clicks called codas, acoustic signatures as unique as human fingerprints. These codas identify not just individuals, but entire clans, with some patterns remaining stable across generations, while others evolve over time. Recent analysis of sperm whale codas has revealed patterns that follow rules similar to human language. The whales combine basic click patterns into longer sequences, following grammatical structures that allow for complex information transfer. They appear to have dialects that vary by region, and they can modify their codas in real time during social interactions, suggesting a flexibility that approaches true conversation. The sophistication of sperm whale acoustic behavior becomes apparent when observing their hunting strategies. These whales can echolocate prey at distances exceeding a mile, their clicks penetrating through hundreds of meters of darkness to image squid hiding in underwater canyons. They coordinate hunts using specific call patterns, with different whales taking roles in driving prey toward other family members. Some researchers believe sperm whales may be capable of acoustic stunning, using focused sound beams to disorient or immobilize their prey. The energy in their clicks, concentrated into narrow beams, could theoretically create pressure waves powerful enough to affect the nervous systems of squid and fish. While this remains unproven, the acoustic power these whales command certainly makes such abilities theoretically possible. But the ocean's acoustic landscape extends far beyond the songs of great whales. In shallower waters, a different kind of symphony plays out, one created by creatures so small they're often overlooked. Yet so numerous their collective voice drowns out all other ocean sounds. Snapping shrimp, also known as pistol shrimp, create the loudest background noise in the ocean through a mechanism that seems almost too fantastic to be real. These small crustaceans possess oversized claws that can snap shut with such speed they create cavitation bubbles in the water. When these bubbles collapse, they produce shock waves reaching 200 decibels and temperatures of 4,000 degrees Celsius, hotter than the surface of the sun. On coral reefs around the world, millions of snapping shrimp create a constant crackling chorus that can be heard from miles away. This collective snapping is so loud it interferes with underwater communication systems and can mask the sounds of approaching boats from marine animals. During World War II, submarines used beds of snapping shrimp to hide their engine noise from enemy sonar, but this cacophony serves a crucial biological function. The crackling of snapping shrimp provides acoustic landmarks that help larval fish navigate back to coral reefs from the open ocean. Young fish, carried away from reefs by currents, can detect the sound of healthy reefs from distances of several miles and use these acoustic beacons to guide their return journey home. Fish themselves contribute their own voices to the ocean's symphony. Many species produce sounds by vibrating their swim bladders, internal gas-filled organs that normally control buoyancy. By contracting muscles around these bladders, fish can create drums, grunts, chirps, and even melodious calls that carry for hundreds of meters through the water. The plainfin midshipman fish creates one of the most precisely tuned sounds in nature. Males of this species hum at exactly 100 hertz to attract mates, their swim bladders resonating like underwater tuning forks. These calls are so loud and persistent that they regularly cause noise complaints in houseboat communities along the Pacific coast, where residents report mysterious nighttime humming that keeps them awake. Drumfish earned their name from the drumming sounds they produce during spawning aggregations. Hundreds of thousands of these fish gather at specific locations and times, creating acoustic displays so loud they can be heard by divers from a mile away. The collective drumming serves to synchronize spawning across the entire aggregation, ensuring that eggs and sperm are released simultaneously for maximum reproductive success. The acoustic complexity of fish communication becomes apparent in coral reef environments, where dozens of species may be calling simultaneously. Each species uses distinct acoustic signatures, different frequencies, rhythms, and patterns that allow individuals to recognize their own kind in the cacophony. Reef fish can identify the calls of potential mates, territorial rivals, and even predators based on subtle acoustic cues. Recent research has revealed that fish communication shows remarkable sophistication. Some species can adjust their calls based on ambient noise levels, raising their voices in louder environments just as humans do in crowded restaurants. Others change their acoustic patterns during different social contexts, using one set of calls for courtship, another for territory defense, and still others for coordinating group movements. The ocean's acoustic environment also shapes the behavior of marine mammals in ways we're only beginning to understand. Dolphins and whales modify their calls when exposed to ship noise, shifting to higher frequencies that are less likely to be masked by engine sounds. Some populations have developed entirely new dialects in response to increasing ocean noise. The communication patterns evolving in real time as they adapt to human-generated acoustic pollution. But perhaps the most remarkable aspect of ocean acoustics is the discovery that sound itself can be a tool for ecosystem engineering. Certain whale calls may help mix ocean layers, their powerful low-frequency vocalizations creating turbulence that brings nutrients from deep water to the surface. The acoustic energy from whale songs could contribute to ocean circulation patterns, making these giant animals active participants in regulating marine productivity. The ocean's communication networks also extend to chemical signals that function like underwater pheromones. Many marine animals release chemical messages that can travel for miles on ocean currents, carrying information about identity, reproductive status, and even emotional states. Sharks can detect blood in the water at concentrations of 1 part per billion, following chemical trails back to their source across vast distances. Lobsters and crabs communicate through chemical signals released in their urine, creating scent trails that convey detailed information about size, sex, and social status. These chemical conversations play out in slow motion compared to acoustic communication, but they can persist for hours or days, creating semi-permanent information networks that help structure marine communities. The integration of acoustic and chemical communication creates multimodal conversation systems of staggering complexity. A single whale call might trigger responses across multiple species, other whales answering the call, dolphins investigating the source, seabirds diving toward areas where the calls indicate feeding activity. The ocean becomes a medium for information exchange that connects creatures across vast distances and evolutionary boundaries. Modern technology is finally allowing us to eavesdrop on these ancient conversations. Hydrophone arrays deployed across ocean basins record the acoustic signatures of marine life 24 hours a day, creating vast libraries of underwater sounds. Artificial intelligence systems analyze these recordings, identifying individual whales by their unique vocal signatures and tracking their movements. Across entire ocean basins, these acoustic monitoring systems have revealed migration patterns previously unknown to science. Blue whales that spend summers feeding in Alaska have been tracked acoustically to wintering grounds near Costa Rica, a journey of 6,000 miles documented entirely through their songs. Sperm whale families maintain contact across ocean basins, their coders allowing researchers to map social networks that span continents. The ocean's acoustic environment is also revealing the impacts of human activity with unprecedented clarity. Ship noise has increased ocean background noise levels by 10 to 15 decibels over the past century, equivalent to a threefold increase in acoustic energy. This noise pollution masks natural communication signals, forcing marine animals to call louder, migrate to quieter areas, or abandon acoustic communication altogether in the most heavily trafficked shipping lanes. Yet the ocean's communication networks also demonstrate remarkable resilience. Whales are developing new vocal strategies to cope with noise pollution. Some species are shifting their songs to higher frequencies that travel shorter distances but are less likely to be masked by ship noise. Others are timing their calls to coincide with gaps in shipping traffic, taking advantage of brief periods of relative quiet. As we listen to the conversations in the deep, we begin to understand that the ocean is not a barrier between distant shores, but a medium that connects all marine life in an acoustic web of stunning complexity. Every call, every click, every whisper carries information that helps coordinate the vast community of ocean life. The sea resonates with millions of voices speaking in languages we are only beginning to decode. Tomorrow, we will peer into the future of ocean exploration and discover how new technologies are revealing secrets that transform our understanding of marine life. We will explore the frontiers of ocean science and contemplate how the ancient seas might respond to the rapid changes our species has brought to their timeless rhythms. In a laboratory beneath the waves off the coast of Hawaii, robotic explorers glide through darkness that has never known sunlight, their lights illuminating creatures that evolution spent millions of years perfecting in secret. These autonomous underwater vehicles represent the vanguard of a revolution in ocean exploration, machines that can dive deeper, stay longer, and see more clearly than any human explorer ever could. Today's ocean explorers command fleets of underwater robots that work around the clock, mapping underwater mountains taller than Everest, documenting ecosystems in the deepest trenches, and discovering new species at a rate that challenges our ability to catalog them. In the past decade alone, scientists have identified over 50,000 new marine species, from bacteria, smaller than viruses, to giant squids with eyes the size of dinner plates. Yet these discoveries represent merely the opening chapters of an exploration story that is still being written. We have mapped less than 20% of the seafloor in detail. We have explored less than 5% of the ocean's volume. In terms of biological discovery, we are still in the age of sailing ships, peering into the unknown with primitive tools and unlimited wonder. Consider what we learned in just 2021. Scientists discovered 500 million previously unknown marine viruses, microscopic entities that may hold keys to new medicines, revolutionary biotechnologies, and insights into the fundamental nature of life itself. Each of these viruses represents a unique solution to the challenge of survival in specific ocean environments, evolved over millions of years in conditions we can barely replicate in our most advanced laboratories. The twilight zone alone may contain 10 times more fish than all current estimates suggest. Recent research using advanced sonar systems and environmental DNA sampling indicates that the ocean's middle waters harbor biomass that dwarfs all life on land. We're discovering that what we thought was empty space between the surface and the abyss actually teems with life in forms and abundances that reshape our understanding of Earth's biological capacity. Environmental DNA sampling, analyzing genetic material shed by organisms into the water, has revolutionized our ability to detect marine life. A single liter of seawater contains DNA from hundreds of species, including creatures too rare, too small, or too deep to capture by conventional means. Scientists can now identify every vertebrate species in a coral reef ecosystem from a few water samples, detecting fish that may be miles away but have left molecular traces of their presence. This genetic archaeology of the ocean has revealed ghost populations, species we never knew existed, documented only by the DNA they leave behind. In the deep waters off Antarctica, environmental DNA has detected signatures from organisms that don't match any known species, suggesting entire lineages of life that have remained hidden from human awareness. Some of these genetic signatures belong to creatures so different from anything in our databases that they may represent new kingdoms of life. The technologies emerging from ocean research are transforming not just marine biology, but our understanding of life's possibilities throughout the universe. In laboratories around the world, scientists culture organisms from the deepest ocean trenches, discovering enzymes that function under pressure that would crush submarines, bacteria that thrive in temperatures hot enough to sterilize surgical instruments, and metabolic pathways that extract energy from chemical reactions we once thought impossible. These extremophile organisms are living laboratories for biotechnology. Enzymes from deep-sea creatures are revolutionizing industrial processes, allowing chemical reactions to proceed under conditions that would destroy conventional catalysts. Some deep-sea bacteria can break down plastic polymers, offering potential solutions to pollution problems. Others produce compounds with antibiotic properties more powerful than anything in our current medical arsenal, but perhaps the most profound implications come from the discovery of organisms that challenge our basic definitions of life. In the deepest parts of the ocean, scientists have found viral particles that seem to bridge the gap between living and non-living matter. These entities reproduce, evolve, and interact with their environment, yet they lack many characteristics we associate with traditional life forms. Some of these viral-like entities appear to be relics from the early evolution of life on Earth, molecular fossils that have persisted in the stable environment of the deep ocean for billions of years. Studying them provides insights into how life might have originated and how it might exist on other worlds, where conditions differ radically from Earth's surface environment. The search for life beyond Earth has been revolutionized by discoveries in Earth's oceans. The existence of thriving ecosystems around hydrothermal vents, in the crushing depths of ocean trenches, and beneath miles of ice has expanded our definition of habitable environments. If life can thrive in Earth's deepest places, it might exist in the subsurface oceans of Jupiter's moon Europa, the hydrocarbon lakes of Saturn's moon Titan, or the ancient ocean basins that once covered Mars. Astrobiologists now study Earth's deep-sea creatures as models for extraterrestrial life. The metabolic strategies used by vent bacteria could function on other worlds where chemical energy sources exist, but sunlight never penetrates. The pressure-resistant organisms found in ocean trenches could survive in the high-pressure environments beneath the ice shells of outer planet moons. Yet even as we reach toward other worlds, Earth's oceans continue to reveal mysteries that humble our assumptions about life on our own planet. Ocean chemistry is shifting faster than at any time in 300 million years, creating conditions that no marine organism alive today has ever experienced. Surface waters have absorbed enough carbon dioxide to increase their acidity by 30% since 1750. And this change is happening 10 times faster than the acidification event that contributed to the extinction of the dinosaurs. But life, as always, is finding ways to adapt. Some coral species are switching their symbiotic partners, trading algae adapted to cooler waters for species that can tolerate higher temperatures. Deep-sea organisms are migrating upward as oxygen-poor zones expand, bringing creatures adapted to crushing depths into contact with surface dwellers for the first time in millions of years. Evolution itself appears to be accelerating in response to rapidly changing conditions. Fish populations are developing resistance to ocean acidification within just a few generations. Plankton species are evolving new shell chemistries that remain strong in more acidic water. Marine bacteria are developing novel, metabolic pathways that allow them to process the changing chemistry of seawater. These rapid evolutionary responses suggest that marine ecosystems possess resilience mechanisms. We are only beginning to understand the ocean's vast genetic diversity, accumulated over billions of years of evolution, provides a reservoir of adaptive potential that may allow marine life to survive. Changes that would overwhelm less diverse ecosystems. Revolutionary technologies are revealing these adaptive processes in real time. Satellite tags smaller than fingernails can track microscopic zooplankton across entire ocean basins, documenting migration patterns that shift in response to changing environmental conditions. Biologging sensors attached to marine animals record not just their movements, but their physiological responses to changing ocean chemistry, providing unprecedented insights into how life adapts to environmental stress. Artificial intelligence systems are learning to decode the communication patterns of marine animals, identifying linguistic structures in whale songs that suggest these creatures possess communication abilities far more sophisticated than we previously imagined. Machine learning algorithms analyze thousands of hours of underwater recordings, identifying individual whales by their vocal signatures and tracking their social networks. Across ocean basins, these AI systems are also predicting how marine ecosystems will respond to future environmental changes. By analyzing patterns in vast datasets of ocean observations, they can forecast which species are most vulnerable to changing conditions and which regions of the ocean are likely to experience the most dramatic ecological shifts. Perhaps most remarkably, we are beginning to understand that the ocean and its inhabitants actively regulate Earth's climate and chemistry. Marine organisms don't just respond to environmental changes, they help create the conditions that define our planet's habitability. Phytoplankton control atmospheric oxygen levels. Deep-sea circulation patterns influence global weather systems. Even the songs of great whales may contribute to ocean mixing, helping distribute nutrients and regulate marine productivity. This recognition transforms our relationship with the ocean from one of simple observation to one of partnership. We are not separate from marine ecosystems, but participants in them, connected through the water cycle, the carbon cycle, and the complex web of interactions that maintain Earth's habitability. In laboratories and research stations around the world, scientists are working to decode the ocean's regulatory mechanisms and understand how human activities are disrupting systems that have maintained planetary stability for millions of years. They are developing new technologies to monitor ocean health in real time, creating early warning systems for ecological collapse, and designing interventions that could help marine ecosystems adapt to rapid environmental change. Some researchers are exploring geoengineering approaches that could slow the pace of ocean acidification or provide refugia for threatened species. Others are developing restoration techniques that could rebuild damaged ecosystems or help species migrate to more suitable habitats. Still others are working to reduce the human impacts that are driving ocean change, developing cleaner technologies and more sustainable approaches to marine resource use. But perhaps the most important discoveries are still to come. The ocean guards its secrets jealously, revealing them only to those with the patience and ingenuity to look beyond the obvious. Each revelation, from the discovery of hydrothermal vents to the recognition of whale intelligence to the identification of new forms of life in the deepest trenches, has transformed our understanding of what is possible on our planet. The technologies of tomorrow promise even more dramatic discoveries. Quantum sensors could detect magnetic fields generated by living organisms, revealing navigation mechanisms we never suspected. Advanced genetic sequencing could identify new forms of life as we encounter them, cataloging the ocean's biological diversity in real time. Artificial intelligence could decode the languages of marine animals, opening windows into forms of consciousness that have evolved in complete isolation from terrestrial intelligence. Most exciting of all, we are developing technologies that could allow us to explore the ocean not as visitors, but as participants. Underwater habitats could support human communities in the deep sea for months at a time, allowing us to observe marine ecosystems with the patience and intimacy that true understanding requires. Biotechnology could enhance human capabilities for underwater exploration, allowing us to dive deeper, stay longer, and perceive the ocean through senses we never possessed. As we stand on the threshold of these possibilities, we must remember that the ocean's greatest lessons may not be technological but philosophical. The sea teaches us that life is more resilient, more creative, and more interconnected than we ever imagined. It shows us that intelligence can evolve in forms utterly alien to our own experience, that communication can span ocean basins, and that survival depends not on individual strength, but on community cooperation. The ocean reminds us that we are newcomers to this planet, temporary participants in systems that have operated for billions of years without our presence, and that will continue long after we are gone. Our responsibility is not to control these systems, but to understand them well enough to live in harmony with their ancient rhythms. The greatest age of ocean discovery has just begun. In the deepest trenches, around underwater volcanoes, in the vast plains of the abyss, discoveries await that will transform our understanding of life itself. Every drop of seawater contains mysteries we have yet to solve. Every creature in the sea embodies solutions to challenges we have yet to face. The ocean that began as condensing steam on a young planet has become a library of 4 billion years of evolutionary experimentation. A communication network that spans the globe, and a life support system that maintains the conditions necessary for consciousness to contemplate its own existence. As we prepare to unlock its remaining secrets, we participate in the greatest adventure our species has ever undertaken, the quest to understand our place in the vast, interconnected web of life that fills the seas. In the end, the ocean's message is simple yet profound. We are not separate from nature, but part of it. Not masters of the sea, but students of its ancient wisdom. Every wave that breaks upon the shore carries this truth. Every breath we take connects us to the invisible gardens that bloom in liquid sunlight. Every discovery we make in the depths reveals not just the nature of marine life, but the nature of life itself. The conversation between humanity and the ocean has only just begun. The depths are calling, and the greatest discoveries lie ahead, waiting in the darkness, where life learned to make its own light, where evolution crafted forms of beauty that surpass imagination, and where the story of our planet continues to unfold in ways that will surprise and humble us for generations to come.